Hello, and thank you for looking at my presentation on webcam hacking. Another term for webcam hacking is called camfecting. Camfecting is simply the process of hacking into a webcam without the owner's permission. There's a number of ways to prevent it, and there's a few ways that you can check to see if you've already been hacked. That's what I will be going over in the next few slides. First thing I want to go over is, what can we do to stop it? To stop camfecting, we can review and understand your security options. This means that you do not want to use the default settings every time you use a new device. So every time you use a new device, you should make sure that the settings are as high as possible to make sure that you're as secure as possible. If they start getting in the way or they're too cumbersome, you can slowly dial them back yourself. Another way to stop it is to make sure you update. That means updating your laptop's firmware or any software immediately as soon as the updates are available. A common reason for updates is the security improvements that they provide. Another way to stop camfecting is by the use of strong and unique passwords. This means that you need to have a different password for each account, especially the devices that come with default passwords. Some webcams do come with default passwords, and it can be tempting to just leave the password as is. We need to make sure that each one of these default passwords are changed. There is a way that you can make sure that your passwords are unique by using something called a password manager. This way, you don't have to remember all the passwords, but they will all be different and unique. You can also use low-tech settings, actually, and simply write them down somewhere. Hopefully you don't lose it. Another way to stop it is to be wary of links or downloads which are emailed to you. There are a lot of telltale signs for phishing scams, and you can avoid them. For example, make sure you don't download anything that is from an email that is unrecognized. And there's also times where a person can be hacked and they can forward you the same email. So even if you do trust the person, but they've never sent you a link or something to download before, you should probably be a little cautious or contact them. So how can we see if we've been hacked? Well, there's a number of ways that we can check to see if you've already been hacked. The first one is checking the indicator light. Now, if your webcam indicator light is on or acting abnormally, which means you see a blinking LED, even though you haven't even turned on the webcam, this could be a sign that there's something wrong. It does not mean you need to freak out or assume the worst. There could be other reasons. This is just one step on checking. There's other ways to check, and I'm going to go over them right now. You can check your browser extensions. To do this, all you would have to do is reboot your computer and launch your browser. If the webcam light turns on, the moment you open your browser, it's likely to be a webcam extension. To find out which one, you can deactivate your extensions one at a time to try and identify the culprit. Another way to check is to check your own apps. To test them, all you would have to do is launch an application and see if the webcam indicator lights up. If it does, there it is. You can just simply uninstall that app and you would be finished. But if you have a lot on your computer, there are ways to do it automatically. For Windows, there's a tool called a Process Explorer, which can check for that kind of software. And on Mac OS, there are certain commands that you can find, but those you would have to look up yourself. If your webcam lights up for a few seconds after you reboot your computer without launching any applications, you might have been hacked. Another way to check if you've been hacked is to see if your webcam process is running. Simply go to your task manager and look for all the running programs. If your webcam is running, do not panic. This can be due to another program using it in the background or simply a default launch setting. You can test that by restarting your computer and checking to see if the camera launched by default. If it did not and you found that it was running, you might be hacked. Another way to check if you've been hacked is to simply try running your webcam. You would need to close all the programs and applications before turning it on. If there's an error message or if something says that your cam is already in use, it's another sign that you might be hacked. Keep in mind that none of these signs guarantee that you've been hacked, but if you check for several signs, there's a possibility that you have been hacked. The last way to check is to simply run a malware scan. If there's a secret piece of software that's using your camera, you can scan your computer immediately. If your computer finds anything, you should make sure that the file is sent to quarantine. To run a malware hack, you would need to have antivirus tools. So what are some other recommendations? Make sure you have those antivirus tools. Make sure you're using your firewalls. An obvious one would be having a camera cover. You can't hack something physical. So if you want to keep using your camera, just put a little cover on it, put a sticky note, or put a little piece of tape. Another thing you would want to change is the default password, not just on your devices, but on the routers themselves. A lot of routers come with their own default passwords, and even though they look complicated, you still might want to change it yourself and make sure you write it down somewhere so that you're not going to forget what it is. I hope this was very informative, and I hope that I didn't panic you, because there are a lot of different ways to check if you've been hacked, and there's lots of measures to make sure that it doesn't happen to you. Just try to use good common sense. Thank you for listening to this presentation. Here's my list of references, and thank you again for listening to this presentation.